So Major League Baseball, the big story in baseball is the Dodgers getting some revenge against the cheaters from Houston. It was wonderful. Joe Kelly. Oh, it was just great. I saw some quotes from Joe Kelly, by the way. The Dodger reliever said that he didn't throw at anybody with intent. He said, my accuracy isn't the best, is what he said. That was a great quote by Joe Kelly after the game. Yeah, it happens. Occasionally it happens. But there's a different story in baseball I want to talk with you about this hour. We'll move away from that. We'll get back to the Dodgers and Astros in a little bit. So baseball announced on Tuesday that it had hit the pause button on the Marlins. They had postponed all of the Marlins games through Sunday. They had also moved around the boxes, the names in the boxes of the schedule for the other teams, including the New York Yankees, who are now going to go to Baltimore. The Baltimore Orioles, who were supposed to play the Marlins, they're now playing the Yankees. The Phillies, they are not playing until Friday because they were the last team to play the Marlins. And the Washington Nationals, they were supposed to go to Miami, but they said, we're not going to Miami. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. Now, the part of the story, though, that got my attention, I woke up to a flurry of messages. This is like red meat for the panicked peddlers in the media, my colleagues in the media, who are just loving the hell out of this story. If you are part of that party, the shut it down party crowd, you have been emboldened by this Marlins story, and it fits the agenda that certain factions of the media have, and they don't want anything to work properly, and they don't want sports to be back. They're upset that their sports league's starting up. They don't like the fact that the NBA and hockey are starting. But baseball, how dare baseball? So I looked at some of the feedback. I don't know if you've seen any of this. Maybe you've tuned out the nonsense. Good for you. Wire service report. Headline. Let me give you some of this if you missed it. Wire service headline. Dr. Fauci says the Marlins virus outbreak could endanger the Major League Baseball season. Really? Oh, interesting. Now, the key part of that is could. It's a weasel word. And, of course, the thing that didn't make the headline in that story is that the same Dr. Fauci said he does not believe the games need to stop. Now, that was the quote. So the full quote, the beginning part, which is the money quote because it's the doom and gloom quote, is could endanger the baseball season. All right. Now, CNN, they had a headline that says experts are shocked over the jarring lack of discipline that Major League Baseball and the Marlins have shown. The CBS Evening News, right? People used to watch the Evening News. It was a big deal. Not anymore. I guess Nora O'Donnell, someone named Nora O'Donnell is the host of the CBS Evening News. And she led with, tonight, Major League Baseball is shutting down at least temporarily. Of course, breathless reporting. It was really a big deal for these news outlets. Unfortunately, it's not factually accurate. Major League Baseball didn't shut down. We just talked about the Astros and Dodgers for the last 2 hours on the show, and there were a full slate of games that were played on Tuesday. Only the Marlins have been shut down for now, and the Phillies temporarily, but they'll be back on Friday. As of yesterday afternoon, there were no new positive tests among the 29 ball clubs in baseball not named the Marlins. That didn't get reported very much, but as of yesterday afternoon, that was the reality. So let us discuss. Now, the media is attacking baseball in addition to the Marlins. Is this a Major League Baseball problem, or is this a Miami Marlins problem? Meaning, is this just a problem over here and not all over the place? Now, the way I look at this, and from what I know, the information that I've been able to track down, this is a Miami Marlins problem. This is not a Major League Baseball problem. This is a Miami Marlins problem. So I've got the snafu, the United States Postal Service, and missionaries. All right, we'll lock all of this together. Now, number one. This is a Marlin problem. Now, it's become a baseball problem, but ultimately it's a Marlin problem. And despite this over-the-top dramatic reporting of attacking baseball. And again, I love to attack Manfred. I love to do it. But on this one, no. Major League Baseball has been handed out, since they came back, they handed out guardrails for the season. There are rules and regulations that have been vetted by an army of medical people and lawyers. right? And now, obviously, a lot of that is to limit liability, but it is also a roadmap, if you will, on how you are supposed to carry yourself this season to avoid a problem. Now, you can't avoid everything, but there's some things you can certainly avoid. The Miami players decided to do their own thing. And so far, they're the only team that has done that as far as we know. We are hearing a group of Marlin players went out clubbing in Atlanta. They had a wonderful time, and this shepherded in the outbreak, that this actually happened in Atlanta, and then they traveled to Philadelphia, and the misadventures of the Marlins. This is a man-made snafu, is what it is, a man-made snafu. Now, Bob Nightingale, friend of Fox Sports Radio from the USA Today, he tells us that he heard the Marlins outbreak started because, as we just said, the Miami players left their hotel to go out and have a good old time, the nightlight and nightlife in Atlanta. So, in other words, and this is important, this was not a fluke situation. This didn't happen at the ballpark. This happened because guys were going out. They weren't following the guidelines. They were careless, and this took place. Now, we should also tell you this, that from what I have read, the vast majority, if not all of those that were infected in the Marlins traveling party are asymptomatic, meaning that they are showing no symptoms of the virus. They wouldn't even know it. They wouldn't even know they had it if they had not been tested and told that they had the virus, which is great news and should be celebrated. We hope it continues. Now, based on what we now know about the coronavirus, and we've been saying this all along, that is not unexpected, that the early reports saying that these people are asymptomatic, that for people who are of a younger age, in good shape, you're more at risk of dying on the way to the ballpark, driving, than you are of meeting your demise and meeting your maker from this virus, the coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it. Now, the second thing, how should Major League Baseball handle the Marlins situation going forward? My advice is to follow the United States Postal Creed. Now, Roberto, my producer, used to work for the United States Postal Service, but the Postal Creed is neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. Now, what does that mean? That means that the train keeps them moving, choo-choo, down the tracks. The 2020 Major League Baseball season is already as wonky as you can get. It's 60 games. That's it, 60 games. If Miami cannot stay out of the clubs in Atlanta and these players screwed up, right? If they're unable to play the games, the Marlins, who are going to be, they were a bad team. They were expected to be one of the worst teams in baseball. Just forfeit the games they're not able to play. It's a simple solution. I am fine with shutting the entire franchise down and just letting the other 29 teams continue. And if another team has a pop-up and it turns out that it was because they were out clubbing and all that, then that team gets shut down. You know what? The example on this, and I hate to do it because I always like to goof on soccer, but the MLS, this is exactly what the MLS did. And I commend them. FC Dallas, they were kicked out of the MLS is Back tournament in Florida by Major League Soccer. They had 10 players and a coach that tested positive in the days right before the start of that particular tournament. And so the power brokers, as they like to say, these are unprecedented times. And I've often talked about the code of the West, if you will, and I try to follow that. And you always finish what you start. As a league, Major League Baseball should embrace that battle cry. That if teams are going to screw up and they're going to miss a bunch of games, there's only 60 games, and that's it. You're done. It's like you're worried about the integrity of the rule book. Well, the integrity of the rule book is already out the window because it's only a 60-game season. Someone's going to make the playoffs after 60 games. I'm okay with that. Someone's going to win a batting title after 60 games, a home run title, a Cy Young award, all those awards. All right, final point. So the idea, and I hear this a lot from my friends in media, some of them I work with here at Fox Sports Radio, who think that sports cannot work outside the bubble, that it is only going to be able to work inside the bubble. I believe this to be false. Now, the reason I believe this to be false is we've actually seen it succeed outside the bubble. Now, what is my evidence? The bubble. What is my evidence? Now, I don't have to go. You're probably thinking I'm going to go overseas and talk about European soccer or baseball in Korea. I'm looking right here in America, and I'm looking at NASCAR as an example. NASCAR as a template. They have been racing for months. They were the first ones back, the NASCAR circuit, and they have been traveling around like missionaries, spreading the gospel to empty tracks mostly. They did have some fans at a few of the races. But they have been gypsies, racing gypsies, traveling around the country. And if you're not a NASCAR person, it's not just the driver. It's a whole team of mechanics and support staff, the crew that changes the tires and fixes the car up and all that. These are big groups of people that travel around, and they're all close to each other when they're working on the cars. It's a traveling circus. And they have been disciplined. As far as we know here, there have not been any flare-ups. And so, again, this whole issue comes down to accountability. And ultimately, it's personal responsibility. Now, if you told me that the Marlins got this at the ballpark and that they followed every guideline, then I'd have a different answer. But the information we have, the Marlins stumbled. They tripped. They fell. But that's not the end game. It's not the end game. And based on the schedule, there's only 10 teams that are affected by the Marlins. So 20 out of the 30 teams in baseball were not even scheduled to play the Marlins. Remember, the way the divisional setup is, it was NL East versus AL East and et cetera across the country based on regions. So for teams in the AL and the NL East, yeah, it's an issue. They're going to have to work it out. But there's an easy solution. I'm an answers guy. You got a problem, you got to come up with a solution. I'm a one-man think tank in the overnight here. So Major League Baseball, here's what you do. You take the punitive action of forfeiting the missed games, as we said. The other option is to adjust on the fly and just get rid of the Marlins, make them disappear like Joseph Stalin came in and just erased the Marlins and redo the schedule. It is possible because you're only talking about Eastern Division teams, and just have them make up. The Marlins had only played, three games, I believe? I think that's it. So they played the weekend in Philadelphia, and then just make up the games. So you can just move some things around. There's a lot of moving parts. And if you have to, and I don't think you would have to, but if you have to, take a page out of what they do in spring training. Have split squad games. I'm fine with that. Have triple headers. I used to have triple headers. Any way you slice it here, there's a saying, it applies in entertainment, and baseball likes to think of themselves as entertainment. The show must go on. And regardless of what happens, and there will be other pockets of people that test positive for the coronavirus, you adapt and you finish the season and you move on. It's the way it should go down.